Hi, this is Devin the Rock Johnson Townsend. May the rock be with you. How you doing, Troy?
Good, Devin, mate. How are you?
Good. May the rock be with you, my friend.
Always and always with you too. Mate, it's been about 8 years since we last chatted when Transcendence came out. So let's catch up. How the last 8 years been
Sure.
for you?
Other than profound life changes and a pandemic, business as usual. And I'm
Fairly
sure
know what
it's
it. It was good. Yeah.
just as
Busy, busy.
calm for you. Yeah,
No, I
just
had
as
the
easy.
pandemic as well. It was weird. I don't know. I think it
You
must have been.
did.
Yeah, yeah, it was down here as
That's
well.
strange. That's strange. I never saw that one coming. No, I mean, amidst it all, man, I think if there's anything that's happened over the past 8 years, it's been enough experience that has underlined the need to know how to pivot and to be able to adapt to the huge amounts of change that just keep coming at us.
Yeah.
And I think that as violent as some of those lessons have been, I feel like they've benefited my life greatly. I feel like I'm definitely older and saggier, but I'm also more. Uh, I understand myself in ways that I don't think I would have had these tests not been there. So I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, fair enough. Now, we're of
Yeah.
course here because you got a brilliant new album coming out called PowerNerd in October.
Thank you.
Let's just
Yeah.
say you're a door-to-door salesman. You've got about 10 seconds before someone closes the door in your face. How are
Yeah.
you going to give your best sales pitch for this album?
Okay. Have I got a second to think about it? Let me just
Yep.
think. We got 10 seconds to think about it. Um, I like Motorhead and AC/DC. I have no idea what life is. I'm lost and confused, but I'm balanced, and I really like coffee. Here's a record about all that, and you don't have to buy it if you don't want. You can probably download it somewhere. Can I use your toilet?
Door. Excellent. Well done. I've bought it. It's done. I've bought a copy on vinyl, whatever. I've got it all. It's all good.
Nice.
Now, the term is great. Power nerd. Just can you
Yeah.
explain to me where that came from, what it's about?
Well, I think it could be applied to a number of different scenarios and people, even people who aren't nerds, right? Um, I often think any sort of group that's been marginalized tend to take the term back, whether or not it's like a racial slur or a disparaging term towards a group of people. Um, and maybe with me, like I've never really fit in with any scene that I've been involved with. Like with strapping, it's like, oh, you're in the thrash metal and death metal or whatever, and everybody in the scene for the most part is like, yeah, this guy's a bit of a weirdo, right? And then I ended up in the prog scene, and it's even worse. Everybody's like, yeah, he's cool, he can be involved, but he's a weirdo, right? And I think, people think if you're familiar, if you have interest in science or technology or building things, and I just have interest in so many different things, and I do all my own work. A lot of time, people are like, "Oh, that's a nerdy sort of quality," and when you're younger, you can think of these things as being like disparaging. But I think as you get older, you're much more comfortable with yourself. And once I recognize that, wait a minute, if the things that I enjoy and the things that I think are important to me in life, empathy or whatever, are considered by society as being a weakness, I'm very happy to own that term. It's like, yes, I've got a hypersensitivity towards people, places, things, smells, sights, etc. But I still get the work done. I still work through it. And so a power nerd could be an example of somebody that is working through things that may be specific to their own psychology and makeup. But if other people think it's a weakness and it's hard for you, but you still get through it, there you go. There's people I know that have been dealing with such depression they can't even get out of bed sometimes,
Wow.
but they do. Like there's one guy I know, he gets up and he takes care of his family and he's dealing with all these problems. And I think there's another example of it. Maybe the best example of it would be like a musician or an artist who's just so unequivocally them that they can own it without any compromise. And that's where I say the definition doesn't necessarily work when it comes to someone like Lemmy,
Yeah.
because he's obviously wasn't a nerd, right?
Yeah.
But he was him 100%. And that's, in another way, a description of it. It's like find out who you are and be it without fear, and then you can move mountains in a way.
Brilliant. Absolutely love
Yeah.
that. Lemmy was a power god, not a power nerd. There we go.
I'll take Power Nerd and he can be Power God. That
Yep.
makes perfect sense.
Excellent. Now, as you continue to make albums, what, if anything, do you try and do differently in the creation and recording process compared to previous releases?
Every time I do a record, I try and find an angle that is like not a gimmick, that's the wrong way to look at it, but like a thing that is novel for me. For example, I remember working on Epicloud and thinking, oh, having that choir, the gospel choir, is like an angle. Or like Annika sang on Addicted, and it was like an angle. Or the orchestra on Deconstruction and the different drummers and all this. So I always try and find things that inspire me that I haven't done before. And what I did with Power Nerd along that line is I created stringent parameters for the amount of time I had to make the record. And by doing that, the hope was that the urgency of the music that I felt was going to be enhanced by having the frantic nature of a tight deadline as part of its inception. And it absolutely did that, but also it was hand in hand with like just an awful period. So the combination of it all was was significantly more difficult than I had assumed it was going to be.
Yeah, right.
That's life, right?
That is. Now, I've never done this before because I've had this album for a week and a bit now. I haven't stopped playing it. I love it. But I want to play a quick fire game with you because I'm going to rattle
Sure.
off each of the song names, and all I want is one word to describe each song. All right, as we read
Yeah,
them out. You have to do
yeah,
this as we go along. Okay,
yeah.
Power Nerd,
Tenacity.
Falling Apart,
Uh, it's only one word, right?
Mhm.
Mm. Equilibrium.
Hmm. Knuckle Dragger,
Frustration.
Gratitude,
Gratitude.
nice, Dreams of Light,
Um, hope.
Hmm. Eubelia,
Oh, it's hard to get it, and it's hard to summarize in one word. Just give me
Hmm.
a second. Really is compromise.
Nice, Jainism,
Despondency.
oh wow, Younger Lover,
Wife.
Glacier,
Death.
Hmm. Goodbye,
Acceptance.
Ruby Quaker.
Coffee.
I knew you'd say that for the last one. Excellent.
I think at the end of the experience, it was just so intense. It was so, I mean, brutal in some ways that what it made me realize at the end is like, I don't know anything, but I do know that I like coffee. So there's that.
That's the one I find myself going away just humming along as I'm walking around my place. And I'm just like, damn, it's catchy. Like,
It's coffee, man. I think the thing is, again, the process of making the record just sideswiped me so dramatically. I didn't expect to go through the things that we went through as a family. That originally the record was going to end with goodbye, but it wasn't called goodbye in the beginning, and the lyrics were different. But then when it seemed like it was appropriate to use that track as a way to summarize the experience of the process of grief, I guess. I recognize that the record ended on a note that is just it for me personally just kind of blew me apart. And uh, I also realized through this that I have agency over what I choose to put out. And by recognizing that, I was like, well, that's not how I want to leave people. Because essentially what that says is I'm destroyed now, and that's the end of the story. But the story was actually different than that. The story was, yeah, these things are part of life, and the grief that comes along with loss is a part of life, but it does go on. And as much as it doesn't seem like it's ever going to go away, it does. And it's not even that that's a hopeful statement as much as part of the process of accepting these moments entirely. And so ending it with Ruby Quaker leaves people with a kind of, it's more of a funny thing, or it's like, okay, so what happens the next day? You've gone through this moment of like real difficulty. And then what happens after that? And it's really, it's like, well, it's the next day.
Mm.
It's like there's no answers or statements that I felt qualified to make at the end of that process, other than this is what I experience, and my what I pull back from that experience is the only way to quantify it at all is to surrender to it and to just kind of like go through it, as opposed to trying to intellectualize it, as opposed to trying to um, make some sort of moral out of it. It's just a part of life, and I don't know, man. I'm dumber by the day, and that's also strangely okay.
Certainly
If,
is. Now, I've
yeah,
always been a fan. Go ahead, sorry.
I just think as long as your thought process when you're making these decisions is includes how other people are going to react to it to a degree. You can't control how other people are going to react to it, but you can control what you're trying to put out there. And what I was hoping to put out with this is the process of grieving and then the next day, I guess.
Excellent. Now, the one thing I've always been a big fan of is a power ballad, and there's a couple of really good ones on this album. Gratitude and Younger Lover stand out for
Yeah,
me. Do you
yeah.
go into a different mindset when you write the big ballad over a big rock song?
Mm-mm.
No?
No, I don't go into a different mindset really with anything I write. I think maybe the most stark difference between mindset would be if I was writing something that was really heavy versus something that was really ambient. But the process is the same, but the frame of mind it's the process of being filtered through a different emotion, right? Like if I'm more reserved and chill, then the process will yield something meditative. But if I'm upset and frustrated, the same process will yield something brutal, right? And but that doesn't change. It's just the frame of mind changes.
Yeah, fair enough. Now, touring wise, you're never shy of a trip to Australia. Any chance you can come back and see us anytime soon?
Yeah, I'd love to, man. I would really love to. It was the first time I'd been there since prior to the pandemic, and I really felt it was nice to reconnect with the country because I feel a kinship to it after so many years of being there. But this time I've limited the touring that I'm going to do just because I've got so many responsibilities at home now with parents and kids, and it's like as we get older and people in our lives get older, you become more responsible for people, right? And you have to find a balance between things. But that being said, even though I'm going to cut down the touring a bit, I definitely requested a trip to Australia because I do appreciate the energy down there.
Excellent. That's what we like. Now, let's look back over your career because it'd be very easy to say what can change over time. But what's the one thing that's always remained the same about Devin Townsend?
I don't know anything, and that and the things that I do know get called into question usually on the very next record. So, um, but I think that flippantly, that's what I would say. But if we're talking about it in a real like practical sense, um, it's just about intuition. And as opposed to questioning it or judging it, which would imply, maybe a degree of wanting to rationalize your thoughts. I think I'm old enough now, and I've got enough of my heart in the right direction that I can trust my intuition in ways that I used to question, but that intuition has guided the process the whole way.
Hmm.
Maybe when I was younger, that intuition would lead to things that I needed to learn. Like I remember back in the day, part of my intuition was to experiment with a lack of accountability on a lyrical front, but I learned some really strong lessons as a result of doing that. But it still came from the intuitive process, right?
Very nice. I love that. Now, technology and the way that you make music and the way we listen to it and view it has changed so much over the years. How have you had to adapt? And was it a challenge in any way to just follow that process?
I I don't know much in life that isn't a challenge, really. I I can't think of anything that I've done over the past 20, 30 years that hasn't been challenging. Even sitting in a comfy chair for an hour and a half, your back starts getting a little weird, right? So
Yes.
the nature of it all is challenge. So I don't know if I can quantify the levels in which it's challenging. Um, but I think that challenge is what creates art, really. It's like what creates a pearl in a oyster is a bit of friction,
Hmm.
piece of sand or something gets in there. And as much as I romanticize the idea that my life is without friction, uh, I think I've become a strong person and I've become a resilient person as a result of constant uh, problems that need to be fixed and issues that need to find solutions. So, in the same way as I'm frustrated by those things, I'm grateful for them, right?
Yeah, best way to look at it. I enjoy your view on things. It's really a good way to look at things. Now,
Thanks, man.
what's on your list of things to do you haven't yet had the chance to do?
I got to take the dog out for a shit, and he just keeps blowing farts, and it's
Yeah,
so intense. And
good list.
every time I get a break during the interviews to take him out, he just looks at me like I'm wearing his sweater, and then comes back inside. So that's one thing. On a musical level, the one thing I've wanted to do for my entire career is make an opera, like a musical, and that's the next project. It's called The Moth. I've been working on it for 10 years. And so I'm kind of ticking off the boxes of these sort of musical life goals, but they're it's a passive quest. As much as I'm interested in doing it and I want to do it and I put all the energy into doing it and it's very important to me and I'm serious about it. If it doesn't happen, then it doesn't happen. You
Hmm.
know, I'm less I less view the professional and artistic milestones in my life as being um, essential, and more as just like an opportunity that I'm happy to take because it sounds great. It sounds fun.
Awesome. Now, you've made a few little docos over the years, but if there was ever to be a biopic made about you and your musical life, what would
Oh
you want it to be
God.
called?
Oh, um, uh, dot dot dot. Wait, comma what? Question mark.
I mean, I'd watch it. It sounds good.
Yeah, yeah. It's just called wait what? Like that's basically the idea. Uh, and biopics make my asshole shrivel up when I see them, man. Like I got through 4 minutes of that Motley Crue one,
Oof.
and I was just like, oh, this is so profoundly fucking stupid. It's like it's like I feel dumber from having watched it, right? And it's always just because I think, and not because it was poorly done, not because it was a bad film. It's just I literally despise it when society deems individuals to be like deities.
Hmm.
Like their story is so important that we need to make a film of some dude pretending he's Freddie Mercury, slobbering through fake teeth for 2 hours, you know? And it's like, this is how we made another one bites the dust, like they're curing cancer or something. I think that just the nature of biopics makes the story of these people, it adds a type of importance to it that I think is just disgusting. And so if somebody said we want to make a biopic about you, I would feel the exact same way about it. I was like, why? You know,
Yeah.
nothing that has happened in my life is of such significance that it needs to be represented in any way other than the music. And the music, I've written an autobiography and we do like photo books and things like that, but that's servicing the demographic that exists already, and a lot of them that I know. And I just don't think that the work that artists do is important enough to warrant that kind of treatment. However, I think the work is. And what I mean by that is I've always been sort of I always kind of subscribe to the idea of the collective unconscious where music and art and these expressions exist as a manifestation of society as a whole. And artists' role within that is through their bias and through their ability to articulate musical ideas. They represent those things that are kind of universally there. So the the role of the artist is akin to like a uh, like a like a carpenter, more so than like Salvador Dali type character. And so when people want to give me comments or compliments on the work, I'm much more happy to take compliments on the effort that went into it. Like, yeah, we know it's pain in the ass editing drums and finding files and working through the emotions and all these sorts of things. And I'm cool with that because those are tangible things. But the ephemeral nature of music is, it's, I'm grateful to be able to hear and represent music, but I don't think it's mine. So a biopic, I think, is gauche in the sense that it ascribes the work to an individual, and the individual becomes the focus. And it's not all of them. I've seen some that aren't that. It's more of an overview on a person's life, like Ray
Mm.
Charles or Johnny Cash or something. But a lot of times it deifies the work in a way that I think is in opposition to my writing process.
Brilliant answer. I love your look on things. I'm just going to go away from this and think like, man, he's got a good way of looking at things.
I'm just old now, buddy.
Yeah. So lastly, let's look ahead to the future with a prediction. We've done this before and we're going to do it again, but we're jumping ahead to next year. Finish this sentence for me. In 2025, Devin Townsend will.
Be confused still. And let me think. In 2025, Devin Townsend will um, still rationalize not eating salad.
Hmm, yeah, that's fair. Look,
Because I went to eat salad last night, and I made an excuse for myself not to, and I had a piece of pizza instead. And although I continue to eat as healthy as I can, um, the pattern that keeps repeating for me is a big part of my psychological process is falling back on the creature comforts, and uh, I haven't found the impetus to address that yet. Because it seems to still people like they deny themselves of all these things, and the rationale for that is discipline creates success or progress. And I'm successful enough, and I have no desire to be super famous. I have no desire. I don't, I'd like to not think about money anymore, but I can continue doing things that I want to do with my current like status economically, and that's fine too. So there's no real reason for me to address certain things in my life that the reason for addressing them seems to come from a place of like, by doing so you'll be more successful, by doing so you'll be more focused, by doing so you'll be more powerful or rich or whatever. All I'm looking to do is really enjoy my life while I get to do all these musical things that I love as well. And so when it comes to things like denying myself pizza on a shitty Monday night, uh, I have no desire to curb that yet. So in 2025, I'll still be rationalizing not eating the salad with the pizza.
Amazing. Absolutely love that.
Dude, that's a fucking. We just went on a big long trip.
Oh, didn't we what? Devin Townsend, thank you so much for your time, man. Absolute pleasure as always. I hope we can catch up again, but not 8 years this time.
I'm all for it, brother, and I'm glad to see that you're still around. And
Thank you.
I will see you next year, hopefully.
You will. Well done with PowerNerd, man. It's amazing. I can't wait for people to hear it.
Thank you, brother. I really appreciate it.
Thanks,
Have a
Devin.
great night.
You
Bye
too.
bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you for checking out our interview with Devin Townsend. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button for May the Rock Be With You. Many more things up on the site. Don't forget it is maytherockbewithyou.com.